Yes, and that is the Lions tour all wrapped up, but that is not the end of international rugby or the intrigue therein for this weekend.
Not by a long way, sir.
No, not at all, because we have Bledisloe 1 kicking off this weekend. It's going to be on Saturday. It's going to be at Eden Park, not Wellington, as it was originally scheduled to be. That it has been moved to Eden Park, where they're going to be.
That's a blow for the Wallabies.
It is a bit of a blow for the Wallabies, for sure, but it's going to be Saturday, 7th of August. Kick-off 7:05 local time. That's stupid o'clock in the morning over here.
It's actually not. It's 8 a.m. It's much more reasonable o'clock than the often
quarter past stupid o'clock. Yes, so that's going to be local time. Referee, it's an all-Kiwi refereeing ticket, as probably COVID dictates, but we have Paul Williams, the man in the middle with the whistle, Mike Fraser and Brendan Pickerel, both assistant refs. Pickerel obviously was meant to be over in South Africa TMOing for the Lions, but couldn't travel, so that's a shame for him, but he's there. And we have TMO Glenn Newman, also of New Zealand, so an all Kiwi affair in terms of the men with the whistles. So yeah, couple that with the Eden Park factor, and it's going to be tough day out for the Wallabies. Just in terms of weather forecast as well, as of Thursday when we're shooting this, the Saturday weather is said to be showers, becoming a bit more isolated later in the evening, but southwesterlies, gales getting as blustery as 90 kilometers an hour in some exposed places. Lows of 10 degrees. It's winter in Eden Park.
Somewhat, but it'll probably there'll be the odd factor, but it's not apocalyptic weather. And no. I think on the telly it'll be hard to notice there's any weather. And I think both it's certainly not wintry to the point where either side would consider, especially the All Blacks, would consider deviating from their supposed plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's obviously. It's the opening game of the season. It is not crucially part of the Rugby Championship.
No.
It is just the first Bledisloe game. Now, usually in years gone by, they've done the last Bledisloe game is the one that isn't part of the Rugby Championship. But this year, basically, I guess, so they can have everyone start on schedule.
Yeah.
They're going with the first game, not part of the Rugby Championship, but no points on the line, no bonus points, no nothing, just a Bledisloe win or a loss, the first game of the classic series,
yes,
which has been held by New Zealand for the last forever.
I think it's 18 straight seasons of Bledisloe retention from the All Blacks. Ooh. Yeah, the Bledisloe is just one of the great cups in our sport as well. First clash was way back in 1903 in Sydney. And New Zealand won that one 22-3, but since 1931 the overall winner of the matches have been, I think that's when Bledisloe came in. The cup was actually donated in that year, so it's been Bledisloe since then. One of the older, more prestigious titles, and one of the great rivalries as well, the Trans-Tasman rivalry of these two. It just goes back as far as the
Wallabies would nearly take it over a World Cup at this point. I mean, they have lost.
That coveted.
They have lost so many in a row.
Yeah,
I mean, man, they would love it so much if they could take one off them. I mean, the winning streak that they're on at the moment in terms of that trophy is just something else.
18 in a row, and I know they're focused on it. They do. I was hearing Reece Hodge talking about the determination to break that long streak of no Bledisloe Cup back in. It's just retained in New Zealand the whole time.
Many's a determined team has fallen by the wayside.
It's true. It's true.
Of a good All Black side.
The longest winning record is 08 to 2010, where the All Blacks won 10 consecutive games in their dominant display. That was mid showing of this, but there's also just all kinds of daunting recent records. The biggest ever defeat or biggest ever winning margin was recorded last year in the blowout game that the All Blacks did put together. One absolutely emphatic display that absolutely was the best points total that they've ever had. But then the other factor is Eden Park. It wasn't meant to be a factor, but the Eden Park record is even more scary than the Bledisloe record.
Yeah.
They've only lost 10 games there ever.
Yeah.
They've only ever lost 10 games. Their last loss came in 1994 to France. Their last loss to Australia came in 1985. That's
what 36 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's 48. And just actually,
was there a player on this Wallabies team who was alive when they last won Eden Park?
That's a fair question.
I don't think so.
I don't know the answer to that.
No, I'm pretty sure there's not a 37-year-old there.
Yeah,
how old is Tamua? Not that old. 31. No, there definitely isn't.
It's true. It's actually since the loss to France, actually they've seen off 42 opponents, 42 unbeaten games in Eden Park since then. And to put that in some sort of context, the next highest unbeaten run in international rugby is 22 by England in Twickenham. And that was between 99 and 03. Australia at Ballymore, which was Brisbane before it was Suncorp. Brisbane has always been their spiritual home, but from 1990 to 2000 They had, I think they had 17 undefeated or games unbeaten, and same actually France had 17 also in the Parc des Princes from 82 to 89, but 42 is just crazy.
Yeah,
and there were two draws in that, but the rest, one draw to the Springboks to start that run off, and one draw to the Lions, which was a few years back in 2017. Yeah. Beyond that, they are just untouchable in Eden Park. So you put all that Bledisloe juju in with that Eden Park juju, and you mix it all together, and you think, oh no,
yeah, you do.
If you're a Wallaby,
you do somewhat. I mean, it's the beginning of a tone setter. It's a tone setter as well for the Rugby Championship and the season ahead. The Wallabies, obviously, they're determined to sort of get something. They're building a nice momentum. They've won that series just gone. They have a lot of positive energy, actually, from their rugby team for the first time in a while. They've managed to cultivate definitely a more positive attitude and a very decent team as well.
Do. Yeah.
But from the All Blacks' point of view, what they're trying to do is rediscover that top form of who they are. They have only been themselves in patches really since that 2017 tour that we talked about. Like they prior to that, they were from about, I would say, 2012 through to 2016. Just imperious team, the greatest team of all time
to play the game.
And they still have bucket loads of talent, and Super Rugby Aotearoa is still the highest level club competition that exists in the world by far.
Yeah.
The skill set on display, I mean, we'll get into the squads now in a moment, the bodies on display. It is a phenomenal array of talent, and I'm liking the chat that I'm hearing out of Fozzie Bear.
Yes,
Ian Foster.
He's been bullishly focus on skill set and
bullishly deriding ugly rugby. Then when he sees it across the Indian Ocean in South Africa, and then also just talking about skill set, bigging up this team. He's picked we'll get into the squads right now, really, but he's picked a very quick team, and he wants to play fast footy, and I think I'm very, very excited to see this All Black team, because they have been leaning a little bit on power and everything else.
Yeah.
Now I think they're going to be about speed and All Black play.
Yeah,
skills.
It would be nice to see, because the story of Bledisloe last year was obviously it was a tit for tat. There was a draw, there was an Aussie win, but when it came down to it in terms of the settling of the sides, it was the tight five of the All Blacks was too much for them really. By the end. That was it. It was decided in the tight exchanges, and we were seeing an All Black side that were mighty but not quite themselves in terms of rhythm of offense. And hopefully with the chat you're hearing from the coaching staff and the evidence on the pitch, like Havili at 12 is a revelation. Suddenly they're a lot more penetrative through the midfield, and like there's a lot of optimism from this All Black point of view, and the optimism from an Wallaby point of view is slightly dampened. And like, we love watching them. That series win against France was huge for them, I think.
Great, yeah.
And like, even going back last year, the win and the draw against the All Blacks in Bledisloe was not to be sniffed at. Like, a lot of really good positive stuff. But you couple as we were saying, the Bledisloe history, the Eden Park history. You look at Super Rugby Trans Tasman, which was obviously like a noble idea that the execution could have been better, and it didn't work out well for the Wallaby side. So I'm sure there's probably local expectations are somewhat dampened. I was seeing there were so ridiculously long odds on Australia to win this game when you're looking at down there compared to the All Blacks. But I think there's more cause for optimism than that. Maybe you're just a bit too close to it. Like when we're looking at Ireland and thinking it's all doom and gloom.
Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. We'll rattle through the teams now. We'll start with the All Blacks, the home side.
Yeah.
They've got George Bower, who has come through as just a real find this year. Crusaders loose head.
Yeah.
Awesome player. He's gone straight in at loose head. Cody Taylor. Obviously needs no introduction, really. He started this season like an absolute house on fire in Super Rugby Aotearoa. At his best, he's the best hooker in the world, really. He gets the nod at hooker over Dane Coles, who's on the bench and is also world class. Nepo Laulala, who's probably the form tight head but does have his issues at times. He gets the role at tight head. Sets up a fascinating matchup against his Wallaby counterpart. Retallick and Whitelock, that is the linchpin of this side. What they hope
classic.
I mean, It is the Rolls Royce combination, the relic from that great World Cup winning side of 2015. They'll be looking to those guys in the maul, in the scrum, as well as in the loose, but mainly in those tight areas to just strip any notions the Wallabies have of getting on top in the tight. In the back row, there's definitely some fresh and interesting ideas in there, and some new bodies that I definitely love. I like this combination: Akiri Ioane and Dalton Papali'i, all blues in the flank, and then Ardi Sevilla gets a run at 8. It's dynamic, it is quick, it's all about the quality of ball carrying
and offload. All of those guys are good footballers in quite the All Black mould. Like if it's on, they'll give the pass.
Very exciting loose forward trio. Aaron Smith makes his 100th cap at scrum
today.
Half.
What a legend that guy is. Keep picking him because he's an ageless wonder and he's just the best scrum half in the world. Not only is he the best scrum half in the world, but if you're an All Black team trying to play All Black rugby, he is the best job.
He's the
best
man
for that job.
Just super passer of a ball and so quick and accurate. It's just, he's a delight to watch and has been for his whole career, and he's actually just got better as he's gone on as well. He's been a joy to watch.
Another thing I envy of, like, obviously Aaron Smith would be the envy of all teams, but just the mould of halfback that exists in Kiwi rugby is just so much closer to right than what we have going on. Like, we've been kind of sucking the Conor Murray Kool-Aid up in this neck of the woods, and you're like, but our halfbacks aren't quick anymore. They need to be quick. And is their passing good? I don't know. You hear a lot of people going like, oh, you can't pick him at halfback. His tackling's not good. It's like, what are you talking about? What's his passing game like? Is it like Aaron Smith's? Is it even close to Aaron Smith?
That's the reason why he's the best scrum half in the world, is because he has a passing game that is better than any other, and that more than any other reason is why he's been so great for so long. The rest of the team, Richie Mo'unga gets the shout at 10 for this match. I mean, I imagine they'll rotate. They have all kinds of options, but Richie Mo'unga, who has been in stellar form himself, gets to renew his partnership. It's an interesting one for Mo'unga because he's been so good for the Crusaders, so insanely good, and yet in an All Black jersey he's probably yet to reach the top heights, and he possibly makes one or two mistakes, but at his best, a phenomenon to watch. And I actually think this is probably the season where he really does grow and step into that role for the All Blacks, and that's just very exciting. David Havili, as you cited, been a revelation in the 12 shirt. First proper hit out for him as far as a non-mismatch.
It's a tier 1 side, it's their rivals. It's the Bledisloe. It's a proper test for a new 12.
Properly exciting. Leonard Brown gets the nod at 13, with Rico actually shifted back onto the wing. Severis is on the other wing for a pacey couple of wingers, and Damien McKenzie at fullback completes just an awesome backline. I mean, the potential in that backline is something fierce.
Any number of tries can be scored any number of ways.
Indeed, and they got 3 Barretts, just the 3 Barretts on the bench, including...
It's a try Barrett.
Scott, Geordie, very fine players. Bowden Barrett on his day. In fact, not on his day, just probably the best player in the world.
He's a super at 22 player. Again.
Oh, what a man.
That was what they were up to in 2015 as well, springing him off the bench unfairly to punish those fatigued Wallabies in the final.
Absolutely. And Dane Coles, as we mentioned, Tunu Guafe and Angus Tavo covering prop, Luke Jacobson covering the back row, who's been in very fine form this season in outer row as well for the Chiefs, and Brad Weber at halfback. No TJ thus far.
TJ, actually, he was one of a few. There were 5 that were released to play NPC, I think, actually, by Ian Foster. Tupou Vai, Hoskins Satutu, Braden Enor, Asafa Aumua and TJ were all released earlier in the week to go and play some provincial footy.
I guess they want to get TJ back to speed. I think TJ will be in there before long.
I think we'll see him feature in one of these Bledisloe tests, if not this one.
Surely. But yes, that is the formidable looking All Black side.
The mighty All Blacks, who will be coming to defend their Eden Park record with aplomb. For the Wallabies themselves, they've actually had a few changes as well from the team that we saw last time out. I suppose I'll just rattle through the team as you did there. Just let it load it up. We have number 1 James Slipper, Payangamosa gets the nod at 2, and Alan Alalatoa gets the nod at 3. That was the debate. Do you start Tupou? Do you bench him? What they've opted for test 1 is Alalatoa starting.
It worked better during the French series.
It did, it's launching him off the bench. Good impact to have. Darcy Swain gets the nod after a very, very impressive series against France. He partners Salakai Loto, leaving Philip on the bench to come in and offer a bit of heft as well. The back row a bit more settled. You have Valentini at 6, Michael Hooper captaining from 7. What an awesome showing he put in that French series as well. And Harry Wilson back in at 8 as well. It's a fine
fun
player.
New forward trio as well. Valentini's so powerful. I mean, that matchup's so fun.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And then actually Fraser McWright covering the back row is also a fine player on the bench too. Then I'll just wrap up the backs. We have Tate McDermott getting the nod after being very impressive in the final test against France, having finally got in there. He partners Noah Lolasiu. I'm not sure if it's O or U, but Lolasiu. And that halfback partnership, the one that took them to victory against France as well. Obviously, no sign of James O'Connor just yet, back from it, still nursing an injury.
This has been great for Lotto. He's been absolutely growing into that jersey and becoming a very fine 10, really improving game on game. And his opus performance so far in a Wallaby jersey was his last one, which is exciting.
That's exciting. Well, when you look back on last season, he started in that game that they were wearing green, that they absolutely got pumped in, and it was an unfortunate one for him. But he was a very young man against a pack that were getting absolutely bullied.
I think he played one Super Rugby game at that stage.
At that point. So it's definitely a lot more miles under his belt. The centres are very exciting. Hunter Paisami in at 12 with Len Ikitau at 13. I like the look of that so much more than what they were doing. And then also Kellaway getting his nod on the wing after his impressive season, and then Jordan Pataya, the exciting Jordan Pataya, back on the pitch at 14 on the wing this time, and Tom Banks, the stalwart, in at fullback, makes up quite an exciting backline for this Wallaby side.
Truly, yeah.
Just in terms of the bench, you have Jordan Uelese covering the hooker. You have Angus Bell, who's been very impressive this season, young man at loosehead. Taniela Tupou, the real heft, the big impact they'll be looking for from the bench comes from Taniela Tupou at 18. Even Matt Phillip next up and Fraser McWright will offer something as well. Matt
Phillip's so good, he's
good.
really excellent player to have on the bench, and they'll need him because they got Scott Barrett and all those Barretts coming after them,
bunch of Barretts,
bewildering
barrage of Barretts coming in. So they'll have to be ready to deal with that. Jake Gordon drops to the bench covering scrum half, a bit more seniority. That's really a form choice because Tate McDermott was showing more form in that.
I agree with that
series.
one. Yeah, absolutely.
Matt Tamua still in there at 22, much to your chagrin.
It is,
and Reece Hodge covering at 23. No sign of Quade Cooper. There were all kinds of rumours. He is in the squad, but
I would have had him over Tamua.
Yeah, maybe. But he hasn't played any test footy in a million years.
Even so.
Chuck him in against the All Blacks.
Yeah. Jeez, it would be better than trucking Tamua in. Anyway, that is a worry of mine when he comes on. Hopefully he can put something together, but he had a rough series against the French, and comes off a rough last really forever in that Wallaby jersey. But he's on the bench and not starting, which is definitely probably a positive from the Wallabies point of view. Looking over the squad, I mean, I do definitely like it. I see potential for it. The pack is excellent. The pack can certainly mix it, and the backline is new and fresh. It's definitely got potential written all over it. I like Tupou on the bench. Does one Tupou equal 3 Barretts? I don't know. Maybe not.
Does a Tupou plus a Phillip equal?
Maybe.
Tupou with a McWright in there, sprinkling of McWright.
Tupou has been excellent. Has been excellent, and his matchup now. We'll see.
There was one factor. Obviously, there was a massive Marika Corabetti shaped hole on one wing, and that is because he is one of 3 players who have been omitted from selection for this because of drinking, I guess. Well, it was himself, Fao Amosili, who probably wouldn't have featured, and Issa Naisarani, who might have. Those 3 were they went to a dinner, apparently dinner and drinks, and according to the quote, they continued to drink alcohol beyond the agreed upon time, said Rugby Australia, and as such they are not available for selection this week.
It's a bit dry of them, really, but
it's not so dry. They were wet.
No, not dry of the lads. It's a bit dry of Rugby Australia to be all like that about it, It's a bit,
they're trying to mind their P's and Q's.
Corabetti their best. Well, apart from Tupou, he's their best player.
Corabetti is a huge loss. Even I was rewatching the highlights of the 4 test series that we got, or the 4 games that we got in Bledisloe last year, and he was seminal in all of them. Like, he had serious plays in all of them.
In the series gone by, like, he's just everywhere. Yeah. He's just a bundle of class energy. Mm-hmm. So good on the ball. I mean, when you can, like, this Wallaby team is good, but when you consider they sometimes do themselves harm by being so strict on these things. But anyway, I guess it makes sense. I mean, they were saying it was a minor enough transgression, but they're just sort of putting the foot down. They
want to be stern about it, and they have been, and it means that he's not available.
I mean, there is a backdrop of a growing, pulsing potential COVID crisis going on in Australia, where they're trying to basically lock down and prevent cases from happening. So,
and that's affecting all of this. That's the reason it's in Eden Park over this, is to kind of some issues. Obviously, they stopped their free travel, Trans-Tasman free travel. That's kind of ceased, so that threw some of the scheduling up in the air first. And then there's obviously South Africa coming. That's a big worry if you're an Australian kind of border control place. So that is the backdrop to it. it's kind of not dissimilar to when those barbarians were chastised, our own Ferg McFadden included, for going out on the tear the week of the barbarian game, even though it's COVID going on, and it's like, you shouldn't do that.
Probably shouldn't do that, no. So understandable, but Corn Betty in particular, huge loss now out of this one. We're just going to move on from the squads, having looked through them there, and just look at the game from the point of view of the two sides. We're going to start, of course, as we always do, with the hosts. The hosts in this case being the Eden Park greats, the All Blacks.
Yes.
I mean, we in the July series, I saw enough. I mean, I've harked on this point a lot, as you guys will know, that in the off season, Ian Foster bigged up this idea of two areas to improve on after last season, where they were clunky on offense and they tried to win games by being physical, as they have been doing for too long, and they got caught out by England. They were unable to deal with England in a way that the team from 2015 probably would have been able to deal with England with their movement of the ball and their just relentless offense. This team became more about the tight five, and when the going got tough, that's where they went. They had a more impressive tight five perhaps than in seasons gone by,
but not as impressive as other teams. That was it. Like what they were the best in the world at by miles was just the creative, the transition play, and just like catch, pass, basic attacking rugby and support lines. And so if you start playing the physical game, then maybe you're fourth in the world at that. Like England's a better pack, and South Africa's a better pack. Ireland might be a better pack at that game. Like
somewhat, and there's definitely a whole lot of truth to that. So what Fozzie Bear has been talking about has been all about, there were two areas in the off season: skills and discipline, and skills and discipline, and skills and discipline. And the side that he picked reflects that. I mean, this is a side that is not necessarily built to physically dominate. I mean, they do have Whitelock and Retallick in there. Which those guys are very important.
Physically dominate.
For sure, but the loose forward trio, and then just that swashbuckling backline, Ioane and Reese on the wings, Damien McKenzie getting into the starting team at fullback, on form, world-class operator, loves to access the wide channels, loves to attack. This is a team that wants to play fast, frenzied, all-black, offloading footy. We saw the French manage to get like some really good tries against a Wallaby defence that can be caught out. They exploited them on the short side. They exploited them off first phase, caught them in bad defensive shapes, and they got some tries going when they got their offloading game going, when they broke the game up. The All Blacks would be licking their lips looking at some of those highlights, going, we can get to the edge here, get our offload game going, and find lots of tries because we have skills that no one has.
They'll also back their ability if they're 3 or 2 points up in the final play of the game. They'll back their ability to kick the ball off the pitch. They know how to do it. They know the drill. That being said, I don't think it'll come down to that. I think the All Blacks, as far as like, they will look to win some collisions in the tide. Obviously, they still fancy their forwards. They like the idea of a team coming to Eden Park trying to bully their forwards, because they very often prove them wrong in that. Certainly when England do it, or when they love that notion. The Wallabies have been making some of that chat. I know James Slipper and Alan Alatoa were talking about dominating their scrum. That's the kind of stuff that they can pin to a notice board in their dressing room and just be going, you know, like that. Literally, that I think it was it wasn't Graham Henry. Who was it before? It was Hansen who was saying, going like, oh, they reckon they're going to come here and dominate, isn't it? I just told Brodie that, you know, and just see the look on his face. Like, he doesn't mind mixing it in the trenches. They will look to get some go forward early on, but as you say, it's a team built for speed. Aaron Smith on his 100th test, just feeding the wider men, wide fizzing passes to probe around the extremities, where certainly off first phase they have looked vulnerable. There was that try that France scored in the opening test that was just a simple, like off a scrum that was retreating, they managed to get to their 10 inside ball straight through, and it's like Banks was on the far wing, Gordon shot up pressed up from 9 looking after the ball, and there's just no one in behind. They were only on their 22, and it's like, how?
In moments they've been a bit defensively disjointed, and the French exploited that quite well. I mean, in moments the Wallabies have been good on D, but I think the All Blacks, it is about keeping the tempo frenzied. It is about probing all kinds of extremities. I'm very curious to see the Havili-Leonard-Brown combination develop.
I've loved what I've seen from Havili.
So
all season he's been excellent, and just the translation up to international level, it was brilliant against Fiji. Like, really, really good. And much as the local reporting were just going like, we should be beating Fiji by more. Fiji are terrible. It's like, Fiji aren't terrible. Fiji are very good. Fiji are probably more of a defensive force these days than this Wallaby side are, based on evidence.
Potentially, and some of the sort of cheat code rugby that they engaged in, just to get outside that blitzing Fiji defense, just with the softest of soft hands, picking perfect lines and runs off each other. I mean, it's instinctual to the All Blacks. There isn't necessarily a tactical element about it. It's just about harnessing those skill sets and getting the guys to play with supreme confidence and rhythm and tempo. And when they do that, they just pick passes that no one else picks, run lines that no one else runs to the same crisp extent, and just make the game of rugby look joyful and easy. It's everything that I suppose the Lions tour hasn't necessarily been. It's all about joyful, expressive, brilliantly skilled rugby, and I really do expect the All Blacks to lean into that and to certainly try and just play with flow and verve and tempo. See, using Havili to just open things up on the inside, he has beautiful soft hands and he can find the right man to pick the right line, the loose forwards likewise, and then just getting McKenzie to the edge. Once you get that Wallaby defence sitting just a little narrow, getting McKenzie to the edge just ends the show.
That whole back row unit will sit them down if they run hard and just occupy Hooper in the tackle, and then suddenly there's more space. Like Hooper was pretty much doing everything for them, and for large periods of that French test he was kind of the guy they were going to. Truly, so they can occupy him with a guy as big a handful as Artie Sevilla is. Just send him down his channel.
Don't be sleeping on Kiriani either. He's in fine form.
Dalton Papali'i can carry for days as well. Like they're all vicious carriers going forward. Slight caveat to attach to their forward optimism is that like the scrum is typically neutral enough. Someone needs to watch Tupou. Tupou's going to come in, and I think according to it's going to be Tui Nukuafe who's going to be up against him. I don't think that goes well for the moustache most of the time.
No, I think that moustache is going to be hitting the turf and popping up and moving backwards most of the time.
Prospect. I mean, so locking down that set piece, or just being accurate enough to deny them the set pieces. If you score the try without dropping the ball, then there's no scrum.
Where a year ago or 2 years ago, heading into the World Cup, the All Blacks might well have fancied making a game about the scrums and the tight five. I don't think they want this game to be about that. I think they want this game to be about their offense versus the Wallabies defense, moving the ball from the middle of the field.
It's a matchup they feel confident they can win. Sure, even last year when they were a little bit clunkier, it was the Caleb Clark show and he was bursting out onto the scene. Like, could it be the Rico show this time around? Could it be Sever Reese lighting it up? D-Mac back in the picture?
I think it could be the D-Mac show. I think that's what the picture
in there
is.
Off the bench after 60 minutes when they're a little tired.
Yeah, I mean, that too will be fun. Yeah. But from the off, I expect them to move with a frenetic tempo. I think the role of Whitelock and Retallick is important. I think their heft in the engine room is going to be very important in terms of locking down the scrum.
Their maul stuff as well, because Swain will fancy getting a maul going. He's a Brumby and he's good at it, and they're effective.
The Wallabies are kind of about set piece at the moment. They're like, certainly in that French series, when the going got tough, it was the forwards who dug them out more than the backs. They haven't quite got the rhythm going.
Down to 14 men, and they just ground it out by holding the ball and being effective in the tight and good at the set piece.
So that's the role of Retallick and Whitelock here, is just to nullify that from the Wallabies. The Wallabies are going to be coming at them, trying to be the more physical team, trying to be the forward-oriented team, which is kind of almost a new look for the Wallabies.
It is. It's a new look for Bledisloe.
It's a new look for Bledisloe, is right, but that's having those two world-class operators in there as just physical.
And Scott Barrett to come in at serious, arguably more heft even than Retallick these days. Scott Barrett, he's very strong. He's almost like a Springbok lock out there. He's going to be sprung from the bench. So there's that. It is optimistic that you're looking at this All Black side thinking how much rather than.
Potentially, there's exactly. I think the All Blacks certainly will be extremely confident about their ability to sort of nullify, just do enough with the weight in the engine room and the defensive nous of those guys in the line out maul, just to take away the set piece off the Australians, not allow them to get that go forward.
In their panic, in the panic that ensues, capitalise, because that's like the story when they pulled away last year and they secured Bledisloe last year. It was actually, they were like, both of the games they won were one score games at half time. It was the third quarter they came out and just punished a few loose kicks or a few loose little things from the Wallabies that just got try, done. And that is very All Black. Even in a year where they weren't quite themselves, that instinct is still there, and they are still probably the more savvy team. They're certainly, just as far as the age profile, they're probably the more senior team as well. Like, this is quite a young Wallabies outfit. There is naivety there. If you can deny them a few of their ins, like the set piece, like the maul, then suddenly they might get a little looser. They might try a few things that aren't on, and then transition is really where the All Blacks are. That's better than anyone else in the world.
That's been the killer fixture. I mean, you say it's a new look for it, but the picture could be familiar. Is that the Wallabies? That familiar picture from the Bledisloe of the last 5, 6, 7 years has been, the Wallabies really trying, nearly getting to an edge, and then just the ball coming loose, and then like that, up the other end, they isolate it, they're caught, they are a little naive, and the All Blacks are just ruthlessly exploiting the space. Finding the space off turnover is so key. The All Blacks, it is about speed, it is about All Blacks, it is about rediscovering that skillful identity and trusting themselves to be the best rugby team in the world, because from their point of view they have the best squad in the world, and looking at it on paper, it's extremely hard to argue.
It is tough to argue. From the visitors' point of view though, because there are inroads, we're going to just look at the Wallabies' chances. It starts with just, can they impose themselves? Can they be that team that are more physical? Can they knock them off rhythm in the collision zone early on before there's even a set piece? Can they get guys like Swain on the front foot, Valentini on the front foot? Just moving forward in the collision zone will be a huge inroad on either side of it.
They've got some class players in this in this forward pack in particular. They have some really excellent players. They are physical. Valentini is a really strong carrier. If that loose forward trio can win its matchup, then that's where you start to see the inroads. If they're going forward in the contact, if they're moving the ball around the corner. I also think they're primed to be a little sharper than they had been with McDermott at 9. I think there was a noticeable betterment of their clinicality with McDermott at 9. I mean, they have been a team about probing and not quite scoring. With McDermott in there straight away,
they were finding tries and then finding scores. Well, like even tries, but also threes will be necessary. They need to make their attacking forays count, because that's been a killer for them in these Bledisloe series, but also just in games in general. They have looked very pretty. Their attacking shape can be very nice, but it just too often yields no scores. And whereas you look at the Springboks, by contrast, being like, these are a bit ugly, a bit rudimentary, but they do get scores. They're more clinical, even if they're a little bit more bludgeoning to look at.
Truly, I couldn't agree more. But in that last game against the French, you saw in particular that McDermott try where they had actually been out of the game and then they entered, and then it was a really flowy attack where Nolosio picked out Hooper on a perfect line. There was a lovely dummy line in there from Alato actually, and Hooper just cuts this perfect line, and then straight away, no sooner as he cut it, then he's stepping his man, finding the guy on the inside, and McDermott is running the perfect scrummy tracking.
That was a good try for McDermott, but actually that combination in that match, they had one great defensive read. I think there's a good level of telepathy between those two, between Hooper and McDermott, that I wasn't seeing there. It's you do see them pop up in different teams, little combos that are kind of just in sync with each other, and they seem to be one of them. They were like making good reads off one another, Hooper running good lines to support him, and vice versa. So I think that's definitely, if they can get those collisions going forward, I think there's scope for those two to pick around those fringes, because that is where's the gap against a typical All Black defense. It's normally around the ruck. Their halfbacks tend to bounce out very quickly. That's why you see Conor Murray have such success with pick and jam. He's a physical unit, and they only really leave one pillar there, and he sometimes goes walkabout. The scrum half's already gone, and you have a quick guy like McDermott and a guy in great form like Captain Hooper. That's a scene to attack.
And as much as they've been frustrating in not being clinical, that McDermott try was a nugget that they're getting there, and I have felt that they're not too far away. I mean, there's so much talent out there. I'm excited to see Ikitau and Paisami try and work as a combination.
That's going to be tough on the defensive side.
Sure, but Pataya on the wing as well is quite exciting. He's kind of a centre by trade a lot of the time, but he can play both
great
positions.
Distributing force as well. Like for a winger, he's got great hands.
There's lots of scope for them to get off it. They love an inside ball. They can catch the All Blacks around the ruck that way as well. Lolasio's getting more sharp. I think there's plenty of opportunities for inroads and interplay in there, and they definitely could get some plays off against this All Black defence. Like, that's really the hope, is that the All Blacks go back to their roots, and as such they're a little defensively soft, and that's how they get their inroads. Obviously the forward pack is going to be huge. Darcy Swain and Salakai Aloto with Phillip to come on against Ritalik, Whitelock with Barrett to come on.
Similarly,
that's a huge matchup.
Has to go well with the darts early on, because Uelezi, they don't want to have to bring him on early. They would rather see Payangamosa go well, and sometimes the darts can be dodgy, and Ritalik will compete, and Whitelock will get his balls in there.
It's also important. It's also important that they get on top physically. I also think actually the defensive breakdown is an area where the All Blacks actually can be quite vulnerable, because the All Blacks are always running the romantic line. They're always wanting to get the next offload away to the next man to find the try. And when you can tackle them, I should say, and stop them at source,
there's a jackal there.
There tends to be a jackal
even
there.
If the first man there is a scrum half, he'll likely be unopposed.
And Hooper got some huge ones against the French, right when they were stretched.
And the French are not dissimilar in terms of the way they were playing, like some of the offloading, the KBA, the ruck avoidance strategy. Not dissimilar from what the All Blacks will be presenting, I feel. So it's good preparation, but even in that, there was examples of them getting of France getting on top of them in that, and they'll have to learn from that and kind of be more accurate because it's a tougher test.
And they can't get too narrow either because the All Blacks will eat that alive. They'll have Mackenzie running that outside arc, trying to get outside the 13 channel, and once he's there, it's over. You know, you can forget about it. They can score it any which way.
Have the wheels to deal with.
No, exactly. So they need to keep their width, and it's a very, very tough task. Chopping, preventing offloads, keeping your width all at once when they're coming at you at breakneck speed. It takes elite defensive breakdown to work that, and it takes probably a Herculean effort from both the loose forward trio and in particular the inspirational captain Michael Hooper, whose form is off the charts good at the moment. He's playing out of his skin and needs to keep it up.
He does, he needs to deliver in all those ways, but other guys need to help him out as well. Similarly, the actual kicking game, I'm curious about it. Like, they played a better game as far as management in the third test against France than they did in either of the other two. But their exit game and their entry game, like, obviously you don't want to just kick it to Demi McKenzie to kick return on you. That's obviously not a good recipe, but kicking for grass, turning the All Black defensive line a bit, even little chips over the top to try and catch the line speed out. Like, good variety to the kicking game will be important, and that'll probably fall on Lolasio's shoulders more so even than McDermott, because McDermott is more of a passing, running scrum half than Lolasio, or than Nick White or Jake Gordon on the bench. So I think it'll come a lot to Lolasio and then Banks as well at fullback to try and kick them into good areas.
Yeah, and force the All Blacks to exit. I mean, really, like, the ideal Wallaby picture. I mean, we haven't mentioned the glaring problem that they've had, which has been the terrible slow starts where they've given up huge leads to France every time.
If you go 15-0 down to France and you still manage to win the game, if you go 15-0 down in Eden Park to the All Blacks, you're not going to win.
You lose by probably at least 35, or something like that, or at least 30. It's very, very tough to come back from there. Like, they need to start sharp. They need to keep, like, in those early exchanges, mix it, frustrate the All Blacks, get your jackal steals. You'll probably
resource your own offensive breakdown too, because Dante was doing damage to them in those two games as well, and it's like they, as much as like you can catch the All Blacks being loose, they have similar bad habits with the multi-phase too.
It's 100% true. They're quite similar teams in that regard. They're going to have to play and mix it with the All Blacks. It's going to be very tough. At times they'll concede tries. I don't think their defense is good enough to hold out the All Blacks for 80 minutes or close to it. So they're going to have to score some early tries. Keep the pace of the game not too high, but not frantic, but to their appropriate standard with McDermott driving a high tempo. Find tries of your own, go blow for blow with the All Blacks, and then look to your game-breaking man, your Taniela Tupou, to come on. If you can be
within a score when Tupou comes on, it's game on.
Yeah, 100%.
If you're
that
not,
guy's
it probably
incredible.
isn't.
I mean, it's not just the scrum. He's everywhere.
No,
his line running,
the try he scored against the French in Test 3 where he just knocked over 3 French forwards from 5 out and got in.
Even in Test 1, like, from range, he picked a line that any centre would be proud of and just cut through them. Like, he's
or the little skip pass for Gordon's try as well, when you're just trying to mark him because he might do that little carry, he'll just fire a nice pass. He's a total rugby player.
He's got all the skills, and as good as Bowden Barrett, and all of them are, like, if Tupou's on his blow and he comes on, he has the potential to be the best player on the pitch.
He can do,
and he can take games by the scruff of the neck, potentially against anybody. So definitely, if they can just go blow for blow with the All Blacks, not allow them to get out of sight, not take the eye off the ball with 5 minutes before half time, for example,
or the 5 minutes after half time, both important times to be out of the dressing room.
Exactly right. And then get Tupou onto the field with the game in the balance. They're going to have a chance.
They will have a chance. With all that being said, how do you see it going? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually really positive about Wallabies rugby, and so it's a shame if they get beaten and then their media start tearing into them, and I'm like, wait, you're turning a corner, relax. This is the toughest team in the world. But I am extremely excited by everything I'm hearing and seeing by the All Blacks at the moment.
I think that back-to-back Fiji winning and the 100 and whatever against Tonga, as much as it was against Tonga, and the talking point was, oh, poor Tonga. It's like, you try and tell me, like, England played Canada, who are as bad a team as Tonga, if not worse, and they only put 70 on them. It's freakish scoring 100 points. Yeah,
they've won 80. They've gone right back to where they should be, which is the skills-based approach. Now, the chaos element to it is that there's no way they can be. They've seemed to have flicked a mindset switch and gone back to being all about offense, and you want to score 4 tries, I don't care, we're going to score 5 or 6. That's the classic world-class All Black mindset that we all fell in love with in the Steve Hansen era. But I think there is potential for them, having flicked this switch, to be caught a little out of sync or be a little less flowy against a good team like the Wallabies, that's the chaos element. It's hard to know if they'll be 100% right.
Yeah, well, if they start dropping balls with their ambitious romantic play and then they're not on top in the scrum, then that's the slow.
But who is dropping the ball? Like Aaron Smith, Richie Mo'unga, the form back combination in the world. Havili's been out of this world, and that back three is just so lethal, so lightning. And Damien McKenzie's one of my favourite players in the world as well. Bowden Barrett to come on, it might be just TMQ.
Might be
too much quality
potentially. I'm definitely seeing an All Black win here, but I'm gonna hedge and say it's a. Yeah, I'm going to say 12-point win, which is on the low side of these Bledisloe things, but I'm going to say a 2-score win. Relatively comfortable, but I think the Wallabies will mix it for at least 60 minutes before getting caught cold.
Yeah, something like 20 all at half time. That's what you want to see.
I would love to see that. No, I think the All Blacks will be edging it throughout, but I think it'll be a closer game and all that. Mainly because I think the Wallabies have more quality than they had in years gone by. Like, I don't like, as much as Loto and Phillip were beaten up by that bludgeoning forward pack last year, I think both of them have improved, a year better, and they have Swain now. So I think they're better in all the areas that they were struggling in last year. And last year they were already better than they had been the year before. So I'm hoping that is reflected on the scoreboard and we have a tight one for quite a while. But I do think the All Blacks at Eden Park will win, which is not really pushing the boat out far to say that.
I mean, the Wallabies might be bringing on Taniela Tupou, but the All Blacks bring on Bowden Barrett, and he can negate all of that good Tupou play with his own world class hustle on the other end of the scale from tight head to fullback. So my personal view is an All Black win. Probably by about 20.
You're taking the over.
I'm taking the over on your 12, but that's not to say it won't be a close game. They'll just find the killer tries and the killer moments.
They have an ability to pad the score like few other teams. You can be in it until the 70th minute and still lose by 20 points.
100%, So that's my call. But listen, it's just going to be a really, really fun game. Really looking forward to it. That's Saturday morning, our time anyway. Saturday evening, obviously, for you boys in across the Tasman.
Yes.
Across the other side of the world from us.
Literally the farthest side of the world. You couldn't get further away before you start coming back again, but we'll still try and watch it.
That's right, and it'll serve as a good curtain raiser for the Lions on what promises to be a really, really fun Test Rugby Saturday.
That's exactly right.
Looking forward to this one. Thank you very much for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment down below as well. We really do want to hear your thoughts.